Speaker. Okay, we're back. I want to start this morning by reading a thing from A Course in Miracles. And A Course in Miracles, we haven't talked about it much in here, but it's quite a book. And it's a textbook, a workbook, and a manual for teachers. It's kind of a parody of a college course. And the workbook has 365 lessons, so they're written to be done one a day over the course of a year. And so if you started with lesson one on January 1, I hit this lesson Wednesday, which was April 16th, lesson 106. So I'm going to read the title and then I'm going to read a part of the lesson. Uh, the title is Let Me Be Still and Listen to the Truth. And then this is inside that. They're usually a page and a half. If you will lay aside the ego's voice, however loudly it may seem to call, if you will not accept the ego's petty gifts that give you nothing that you really want, if you will listen with an open mind that has not told you what salvation is, then you will hear God's mighty voice of truth, quiet in power, strong in silence, completely certain in its message. Listen and hear your Creator speak to you through your soul. God will silence the thunder of the ego's meaninglessness and show you the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. Be still and listen to the truth and live the life your Creator brought you here to live. Prepare yourself for miracles today. Be ready for salvation. Let me be still and listen to the truth. So, this whole thing of Saint Ignatius and what he calls the good spirit and the bad spirit, and we are in today. We're going to talk about consolation versus desolation, and with a view to try to identify what state we are in. Now, I've had to do a little translation, and he talks about the good spirit and the bad spirit, or the true spirit and the false spirit, or the sometimes evil spirit. Doesn't use the word devil much, but for me, the way I make this work the best is if I distinguish between my ego personality, the spirit of my ego personality, my self-centered, self-obsessed, self-absorbed, selfish, if I said self enough, mind, point of view, perspective, focus, whatever, and my soul, which I believe inhabits this body, and when this body passes away, the soul will carry on to do whatever it's going to do. And I am convinced personally that my soul is here on a mission that that is something quite beyond my ego's mission. And I'm convinced personally that my ego's mission is always wrapped around some aspect of three different things. The first is self-preservation. What my ego wants is to survive as long as it can. Um, Two, self-gratification. It wants to feel good, doesn't like feeling bad, and will do anything to feel good instead of feeling bad. And finally, self-justification, which is that I'm going to mentally try to justify what my actions are. And I don't think the soul has any interest in any of that. The soul knows that it is an expression of God or higher power or whatever you want to call it. It knows it has, I don't know about eternal, because it seems to have a beginning and maybe it has an end. I don't know, but it is not tied to the body's life and death, and is not tied to the body's feelings even. Um, so I have definitely experienced in sobriety, um, in our fellowship, the conflict that, at least for me, it's a conflict that happens between the my ego's agenda, which I said is self-preservation, self-gratification, self-justification, and my soul's natural feeling state, even which is patient, kind, tolerant, and loving. And the problem for me is that the ego speaks first. It speaks the loudest. It's the most insistent, and uh, and the voice of my soul I can only hear when I'm relatively calm and still, and not paying attention, not living under the tyranny of my ego's voice. So so I have to do that to make the spiritual exercises work. But once I've done that, for me, um, then desolation is when I'm living under the ego's lash, the tyranny of the human ego, trying to make it happy. And my experience is I've never succeeded in making my ego happy for longer than 5 or 10 minutes, maybe longer, but it pretty quickly comes up with something else that needs to be different than it is, uh, for it to be happy. And my one of my deepest experiences of serenity so far happened in an AA meeting. I'm in the basement of a church, and for one of the very few times in my entire frickin' life, I didn't need anything to be different than it already was. I didn't need the room to be different, the temperature, anybody. They didn't need to be different than they were, and I didn't need to be different than I was. And that may seem like a strange definition of, because that's not patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. But the effect on me was that I was patient, tolerant, kind, and loving because I didn't have any, nothing needed to be any different. So, um, so what we're going to do this morning, so we're into this book, God's Voice Within, by Mark Thibodeau, and he divides the book into three parts. Part one is just understanding desolation versus consolation. Part two is, once you understand how to identify what state of mind you're in, he moves to how to respond to desolation, how to respond to consolation, and then part three, which is the payoff of this thing, is how to use this information to help you make decisions. And the ultimate decision that I believe we are trying to make in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is step 11, where we are to pray only for knowledge of God's will for us and the power to carry that out. We're not, that precludes the ego's agenda. This is not about finding out what my ego wants in life and pursuing it. This is actually asking the question, why is my soul here living in this body that I call Jack? Um, what is its agenda? What mission is it on? And I think the next book we're going to get into is this Rick Warren book called The Purpose Driven Life, where he essentially lays out 5 purposes, and I'm going to state them terms that work for me, not his terms. But the first is that the primary purpose of my life is to give God a means and mode of expression, that I am here to express God's will for us human beings, not my own personal ego's will for my life. And the second one is I'm here to be part of a fellowship. I am not to live in isolation, which a lot of us want to do because it feels safer and less trouble when we're alone than when we're interacting with other people. Um, the third purpose is to grow along spiritual lines. He says to become like Christ, which is fine. Christ is the model of how you're going to be. But what works for me, it's just a very powerful line. How it works. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. It's a wonderful, it's not get out of jail free because there's stuff you got to do, but it's saying the point is that I am willing to grow. I'm trying to improve my conscious contact. I'm trying to pursue God's will for me as opposed to my will for me. Um, and then there are two at the end, number 4 and number 5. Number 4 is your ministry. And just ministry just means where I am trying to serve my creator, what is the area uh, where I'm engaged in trying to serve my creator. And for me, that's AA. AA has just been the whole deal has just been extraordinary for me, and I hope it doesn't end. It is the bright spot of my life, interacting with people, going to meetings, one-on-ones, reading all this related literature. So I believe that's my ministry. And the final one, mission, really, I think is message. What message am I carrying? And A Course in Miracles has this great thing. You don't get to, how's it say it? The fact that you have to carry a message, that's not your choice. You're carrying a message whether you want to or not. By your behavior and your attitudes and your speech, you are showing people what the world, what your life means to you and what their lives mean to you. You're carrying a message whether you accept that or not. So then it goes on to say, here's the deal: pick the message you want to carry based on what you want to learn. It's just amazing. It's saying we we learn by teaching. We don't, well, but it doesn't matter. But we learn through our demonstration. And if I take seriously, it's at the top of page 83, that I am to ask is the big book, I am to ask my creator each morning in meditation to show me the way of patience and tolerance and kindness and love. That's my job, asking God to show me the way, because my personality is impatient, judgmental, selfish, and frightened, the opposites of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. And I lack the power to respond in that way, to respond with patience, tolerance, kindness, and love, unless I get connected to my spiritual creator and I ask to go through this. So what we're going to go through, I'm essentially going to go through this, uh, the email that I sent yesterday, that's got consolation on the left and desolation on the right, and it's got um, page numbers of the book God's Voice Within, if you want to get back to that. And I'm going to run through this, and I just want to add that if you couple this, our reading, uh, number 4, um, I believe says, it says, if you're as seriously alcoholic as we were, I believe if you're human being living on this planet hearing these words, you don't have to be alcoholic. You've only got two choices. I believe either you're living under the ego's tyranny, you're trying to satisfy your ego, your human ego, and this is saying that won't work. It will never bring you what it's promising you. That's why I loved in what I read the um, if you will not accept the ego's petty gifts, meager gifts that give you nothing that you really want. What the ego offers you is temporary satisfaction of some sort that will not last. This was what Ignatius learned as he's healing from the cannonball wound. That when he thinks about worldly deeds, doing knightly stuff, winning the hand of a fair lady, all that stuff, it doesn't last. He feels good in his fantasy, but it doesn't last. And when he starts thinking about the saints and what the saints did, it lasts. So he starts saying, maybe I'm not going to pay much attention to the ego's voice. He calls it the false spirit, but whatever. Um, so so it goes way back to that. I believe these are a human being's only two alternatives: operate under the ego's lash, trying to make it happy, or ask your creator, why am I here? What is your will for me? What do you want me to do? Show me the way of patience, tolerance, kindness, and love. um, so uh, so looking left and right, consolation is increase in faith, hope, and love. This is important because it's saying improve, you're growing in faith, hope, and love. This is nowhere does it say well, of course, in Miracles said, "Be still and listen to the truth." But this, I guess, the other way I want to say it, this is not about being complacent and enjoying our exalted spiritual state. It's never about that. I mean, of course, in Miracles, we'll say, "I rest in God." And that's pretty important, to be able to rest in higher power and allow higher power to heal you. But this is increase. This is and on the other side, now what Thibodeau does is he says increase in faith, hope, and love, and then desolation, he calls it empty of faith, hope, and love. Well, the fact is, I am full. I'm not full of faith, hope, and love. I'm full of the opposites. I'm full of doubt and fear and despair. The opposites of faith, hope, and love. Um, and it's the same thing with the number two, is a sense of God's closeness, a sense of my connection, a sense of being cared for and directed by God. The original third step said, under the care and direction of our Creator, of God. Um, Desolation is the opposite. Instead of feeling higher powers closeness, feeling like higher powers got my back, I feel that dreadful aloneness that we all can feel. I'm even when I'm around people, I'm just captured within by my own state of mind. That's generally, I think the other part of it is all based on fear. I can, and it's and what I've discovered through this depression is, what I'm really afraid of is my powerlessness over my fear. That's what I'm really afraid of. Um, the fear I can sort of live with. it's it's when I can't keep it from ruining my human experience, when fear takes precedence. Now, one of the things Thibodeau says, there is natural physical fear, and there are some positive mental fears that will lead to action that in the long run will be better. So I'm not talking about that. I mean, fear is an instinctual self-preservation technique that the soul does not have. It doesn't have the same. So, any rate, it's the powerlessness that is the problem. It's the powerlessness over my reactions to my life that I really fear. So, consolation, increase faith, hope, and love. Desolation, full of or increase of doubt, fear, and despair. Number two, sense of God's closeness, sense of being connected. Um, Number two, in desolation, isolation, aloneness. You know, it's an amazing line, I think, in the big book when um, it talks about uh, the hideous four horsemen of terror, bewilderment, frustration, despair. And then it talks about, we think he's like a boy whistling in the dark, trying to keep his spirits up. He's, oh yeah, God is great. Oh yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, um, pretty soon he won't be able to imagine life with alcohol or without it. um, and the chilling vapor that is loneliness will settle down. That's this kind of thing. My life is not working. I have no idea what to do about it. I don't have any sense of a power greater than my mind or greater than my body. um, so I can't imagine God life with God, or I can't imagine life without God. At one point, crushed by a self imposed crisis we could neither postpone nor avoid. We have to fearlessly face the question: either God is everything or else God is nothing. What choice am I going to make? Do I have the power to make that choice? I think most of us, when we're living under the ego's lash, we can't choose God. We can say, yeah, God is everything. Okay, okay. God is everything. But we can't experience that because we're stuck in our own. So anyway, so number three is consolation is peace and tranquility, and desolation is agitation and disquiet. Um, our word for that is restless, irritable, discontent. Restless in the body, we can't kind of sit still. Irritable in the mind, we're just annoyed by everything, and discontent in our hearts, in our spirits. It's Silkworth. Those are Silkworth's words. They're not coming from Bill Wilson. Restless, irritable, and discontent, and they are so apropos. And talk about the three: body, mind, and spirit. Um, so I don't, I won't need to talk too much about those. Um, Number four, great spiritual desires, and I'm contrasting that with his full of boredom and tepidity, and self-centered fear and worry. Um, Boredom and tepidity is one that takes some understanding because it's actually, I believe, a frightened state. But our defense against the agony of that kind of fear is we just don't care. We just don't care. I feel like the primary reason for my drinking was it would instantly take me to, I don't care. I don't have to care. I don't have to worry. I will worry about it tomorrow. Um, However you want to say, but seeing that's my response, that's how I handle my fear. And really what I'm afraid of, I've found, is how I react. I'm not afraid of what I tell you I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of my powerlessness over my reaction. Control freaks, I'm a control freak. What I'm trying to do is make sure you don't behave in a way that's going to light me up, because I'm afraid of my powerlessness over getting lit up, getting angry, doing something stupid, whatever it is. Um, and finally, number five, transparency versus secrecy. This is just so, our work comes down to honest, open, and willing. That's the added. My sponsor drilled it into me every time the book talked about attitude, that I was to think how it works. HOW, honest, open, willing. Am I being honest about how miserable I feel? Am I being open-minded about what my alternatives are? Uh, that state, I was taught to read the book. Every statement they make in the book is the truth of their experience. The question is it the truth of my experience? Can I be honest about the truth of my experience compared to them? And if I decide that, yeah, that's the truth of their experience, it's not the truth of mine. Next question is, am I willing to do what they said they did to get to that experience? They're saying, just to the extent that I humbly rely on God, and just to the extent that I try to behave in a way I think God wants me to behave, I will be enabled, I will get the power to meet the calamity with serenity. That's their statement of truth. Do I want that to be a statement of my truth? Do I want to be able to match calamity with serenity? Never says anywhere that the calamity is going to change. And the calamity is a shapeshifter. It moves, it shifts around in what it is all the time. Real challenge. The calamity is anytime. The fear page 68 says we never apologize for God. Raises a great question. How do I apologize for God? I think whenever I complain about anybody or anything, whether a person, the president, anything, political process, whatever, um, bad traffic, I'm apologizing for God. I'm saying this should not be. This should be better than this should be different than it is. Um, and and that's the calamity. That's the calamity of the moment. Whatever I feel is not the way it should be in my life, that's the calamity of the moment. And if I'm willing to grow along spiritual lines, I'm trying to meet that calamity with a sense of, at least I think I'm trying to do my job, which is the other huge part of this whole deal. I think is, what is my primary purpose? We read Ignatius's primary purpose. Trust, love, and serve your creator and thereby save your soul. It doesn't matter if your life is long or short, rich or poor, sick or healthy, honored or dishonored. What matters is that you're trying to trust, love, and serve your creator. Wow. If I could remember that, and try to put whatever calamity I'm looking at in perspective with that, which is the final thing. He talks about what he calls true perspective and what he calls confusion. True perspective is page 54, confusion is page 25. He calls them a subcategory. Um, I think they're a result, that they're a byproduct. That when I am living to my primary purpose, I feel like I know what my primary purpose is, and I'm trying to do that. I'm honest, open, and willing. I don't have to hide anything. I don't have to try to manipulate anybody. Um, and the other side of it is confusion, and he uses the word doubt in the very first thing, doubt as opposed to faith. Um, when I am connected, I don't feel doubt. When I'm in the ego's BS, I do feel a lot. What should I do? Doubt is it's an easy thing to creep in there. So I believe that uh, when you get back to the definition of consolation and desolation, um, it's that I am in sync with God's purpose for my life, which means I'm aware of it, in agreement with it, and I'm trying to fulfill my mission as a creation of this higher power that's way more powerful than my human body and my human mind. And I'm trying to fulfill its mission. When I'm in sync with that, I have feelings of faith and hope and love, a sense of God's closeness, peace and tranquility, great spiritual desires to fulfill my mission in my ministry. Um, and transparency. I'm not trying to hide anything. I want to be an open book. Um, and desolation is the opposite of all that. So, happy Easter, everybody. And I'm going to ring this gong and we'll move to some open discussion. I just love it. I think one of my greatest uh, um, sense of satisfaction is AA. The big book just means so much to me, and when I find these things in other places that confirm or embellish in some kind of way our work in AA, I just get pretty excited and trying to get it into understandable terms. I love being able to do that. So be still and listen to the truth. And hope to see you next. So we're not meeting next week. We will the week after, and we'll start talking about once I know what kind of state I am in, what am I going to do about it? Thank you very much.